The Ember and the Storm. The wind at 15,000 feet doesn't just rip at your clothes, it tries to tear the soul right out of your body. Up here, the air is thin, sharp, and mercilessly cold. My name is Lyra of the Skyhold Citadels. Like my father and his mother before him, I am a rider. We are sworn to protect the pristine floating cities of the upper atmosphere from the savages who dwell on the scorched earth below. We are taught that order is the only thing keeping humanity alive. We are light. We are discipline. We are the shield against the chaos. Beneath me, my dragon, Zephyr, banked sharply against a thermal current. Zephyr is a stormwing, sleek, silver-scaled, and faster than a thunderclap. Through our mental bond, I could feel every muscle in his body working against the gale. But today, there was something else. A tension that tasted like metallic ozone on the back of my tongue. "Focus, little spark," Zephyr's voice rumbled deep in my mind. It wasn't spoken words, but impressions of ancient, heavy thought. The air is wrong today. We are drifting too close to the jagged boundary. The jagged boundary, the demilitarized zone filled with perpetual violent thunderstorms that separated our world from theirs, the Ashlands. I looked down. Far below the clouds lay the Ashlands. We were taught they were a hellscape of volcanoes and brutal warriors bonded to flightless magma monsters. For 100 years, our people had killed theirs on sight. They returned the favor with fire. "Just a routine patrol, Zephyr," I whispered, shivering despite my thermal uniform. "We check the perimeter, and we go home to the sunlight." But the weather had other plans. It happened in a heartbeat. A sudden, violent downdraft, an invisible hand of air, slammed into us from above. It hit us like a physical hammer blow. Zephyr roared, a sound of pure shock, his massive silver wings straining and cracking against the chaotic pressure. "I cannot hold the altitude," he projected, panic finally seeping into our bond. "The current, it is dragging us down." We were falling, plunging straight into the churning gray nightmare of the boundary clouds. The world became a blinding shroud of freezing rain and violet lightning. The roar of the wind was deafening. I gripped the leather saddle straps until my knuckles turned white, screaming against the thunder, trusting Zephyr to navigate the blindness. "Pull up, Zephyr, pull up! I am trying!" We broke through the bottom of the clouds with terrifying speed. Below us wasn't the safety of the open sky, but a treacherous landscape of sharp black rocks and steam. We were inside the storm zone. Zephyr flared his wings hard, catching a pocket of air at the last second. We crashed onto a narrow, rocky plateau, skidding across the wet stone. The impact rattled my teeth and stole the breath from my lungs. Silence followed, broken only by the hiss of rain. We were grounded, behind enemy lines, and I knew, with a sinking dread in my stomach, that we were not alone. I struggled with the buckles of my safety harness, my fingers numb. The air here was different. It wasn't clean and cold like the Skyhold. It was thick, heavy, and smelled of sulfur and wet ash. It was the scent of the enemy. Before I could free myself, a low, vibrating growl shook the very rocks beneath Zephyr's talons. It was a sound deeper than anything a stormwing could make. It was the sound of the earth grinding its teeth. Through the thick mist at the other end of the plateau, two glowing, fiery orange eyes opened. A magma dragon. I froze. Pictures in books didn't do it justice. It was colossal, easily twice Zephyr's bulk, covered in scales the color of obsidian glass. Between the armored plates, veins of cooling lava pulsed with a dull red light. Heat radiated from it in shimmering waves, turning the falling rain into instant steam. And sliding off its massive back was a rider. He was tall, imposing, and dressed in armor made of black volcanic glass and scorched leather. He reached over his shoulder and pulled a massive greatsword from his back. The metal hummed with latent heat. He didn't wear a helmet, revealing a face hardened by the harsh sun of the Ashlands. A jagged scar ran from his brow to his jaw, a testament to a life of violence. An Ashlander Warrior, a savage, my mortal enemy. My training kicked in. Kill or be killed. Strike first. I drew my own weapon, a slender, electrified rapier designed to pierce armor joints. "Zephyr, defensive stance, now!" I shouted, my voice tight with adrenaline. "Prepare lightning breath." The Ashlander Warrior raised his heavy sword, his dark eyes locking onto mine across the 50 feet of rain-slicked rock separating us. His expression was pure, lethal hatred. He looked at me not as a person, but as a pest to be exterminated. "Ignis!" he commanded his obsidian monster, his voice rough like grinding stones. "Burn them to ash." Both dragons inhaled simultaneously. Zephyr's throat glowed blinding white with electricity, the air crackling around us. The magma dragon, Ignis, opened a maw that looked like the entrance to an active volcano, liquid fire pooling in his throat. I braced myself for the end. This was it. I was going to die on a forgotten rock, incinerated by a barbarian. I closed my eyes, waiting for the heat. But the fire never came. Instead of pain, a strange sensation washed over me. It started in the center of my chest, a low hum that vibrated through my bones, resonating with the beat of my heart. It wasn't fear, it wasn't anger, it was recognition. Like hearing a song you forgot you knew. I opened my eyes. Zephyr had snapped his jaws shut, extinguishing the lightning. He shook his sleek silver head, confused. "No," Zephyr projected into my mind, the thought thick with bewilderment. Not target, not enemy, kin. Across the plateau, the scene was mirrored. The massive obsidian dragon, Ignis, exhaled a puff of confused gray smoke and lowered his massive horned head, refusing to attack. He took a heavy step forward, the rock trembling, but not to strike. The Ashlander Warrior looked just as shocked as I felt. He lowered his sword an inch, glaring at his own dragon in disbelief. "Ignis, what are you doing? I gave you an order. Destroy them." His dragon ignored him completely. The massive beast took another step toward Zephyr. My silver dragon took a step toward the magma beast. They didn't attack. They sniffed the air around each other, a low, inquisitive trilling sound coming from their throats, a sound of greeting, not war. It was impossible. Sky dragons and ground dragons were natural enemies, biological opposites. It was the fundamental law of our war. The Ashlander looked at me, his dark eyes wide with confusion and suspicion. The shared shock created a momentary truce. "What sorcery is this?" he growled, stepping forward. "Control your beast, Skywalker." He's not listening to me," I stammered, lowering my rapier slightly, my hand trembling. "Is yours listening to you?" The warrior paused. He looked at the dragons, interacting like long-lost brothers, and then back at me. The intense heat radiating from him and his dragon should have been terrifying, but in the freezing rain of the storm, it felt dangerously inviting. "The old legends," he said quietly, almost to himself. "Before the war, before the separation." "What legends?" I asked, the question slipping out. He sheathed his sword with a loud metallic clack. It was a gesture of immense trust, or perhaps immense arrogance. "They say all dragons came from the same source," he said, his voice carrying over the wind. "That they are two halves of the same soul. We divided them. We made them forget." "I am Kaelen, of the Obsidian Vanguard," he said, declaring his rank. I hesitated. Giving my name to an enemy was treason. It was against every protocol, but the hum in my chest was getting louder. "Lyra, Skyhold Third Wing." We stood there in the pouring rain, two soldiers bred for mutual destruction, rendered powerless by the ancient instinct of the beasts we thought we mastered. A new sensation flooded the bond I shared with Zephyr. It wasn't my emotion. It was his, and it was mirroring something coming from the Ashlander dragon. It was a profound, terrifying sense of belonging. And as I looked at Kaelen, I felt an echo of that bond slam into my own chest, a pull so strong it knocked the air from my lungs. It was magnetic, undeniable. He felt it too. I saw his jaw tighten. His gaze traveled over my skyhold uniform, polished white and blue, now mud-splattered and soaked. "They lied to us," Kaelen murmured. He wasn't talking to me, but to the storm around us. "They told us you were cold, heartless zealots who wanted to freeze the world into submission." "And they told us," I replied, my voice trembling slightly as I stepped closer, drawn like a moth to a flame, "that you were mindless brutes who wanted to burn everything beautiful to ash just to watch it glow." He looked at me then, really looked at me. The hatred was gone, replaced by a dangerous, burning curiosity. The air between us crackled, charged with something far more volatile than Zephyr's lightning. "You don't look cold, Lyra," he said softly. "And you don't seem mindless, Kaelen," I whispered. "Every second we stood here was a death sentence. If my patrol found us, they would kill him. If his vanguard found us, they would execute me. We were standing on the precipice of treason." "The storm is breaking," Kaelen said, looking up at the thinning clouds. Sunlight was beginning to pierce through the gloom, illuminating the steam rising from his armor. He was right. The downdraft was gone. The thermal currents were stabilizing. I could fly again. I could escape. Duty screamed at me to mount up, fly away, and report this encounter, to bring a squadron back to hunt him down. That was order. That was discipline. That was what a good soldier did. But as I looked at him, standing firm on the volcanic rock, a warrior of fire who had stayed his hand, I knew I would never report this. I sheathed my rapier. The sound echoed in the silence. "If we meet again, Kaelen of the Vanguard," I said, trying to make my voice sound authoritative and failing, "we will be enemies again. I will have to kill you." A slow, dark smile spread across his scarred face. It wasn't mocking. It was a challenge. It was a promise. "You can try, Lyra of the Sky, but I think your dragon might have other ideas." He turned and swung himself onto Ignis's massive back with practiced ease. The heat of the dragon made the rain sizzle into steam around them, creating a veil between us. I scrambled onto Zephyr's saddle, buckling the harness with shaking hands. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. "We are leaving something behind," Zephyr mourned in my mind as he spread his magnificent silver wings, catching the wind. "Yes," I thought back, sadness constricting my throat as we launched into the air. "We are leaving the war behind and finding something much more dangerous." As Zephyr caught the powerful updraft, rocketing us back toward the clouds, I looked down one last time. Kaelen was still there on the plateau, a dark speck against the gray rock, watching me ascend toward the light. The war was still raging across the world. Nothing had officially changed. Except everything had changed, because now I knew the fire below wasn't just meant to burn, it was meant to warm, and I was terrified of how much I wanted to get close to the flame again.